brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
We try to teach it, rep it, and then scrimmage it, and try to put point systems on as much as we can. But also we've started implementing certain non-negotiables we want in whatever we're doing. Our practice used to be a breakdown of about 75, 80% defense, 20% offense. And now I think it's probably more 50-50.
Stan Bonewitz is in his 19th season as the head coach of the Concordia University Texas men's basketball program. He's also in his 9th year as the department's associate director of athletics. In his previous 18 seasons at the helm, the Tornadoes have registered the program's first ever NCAA postseason victory, captured 1 league championship, and made 3 conference tournament title game appearances. Bonewitz earned his 200th career victory on January 25, 2018. Prior to his arrival in Austin, Bonewitz was the associate men's basketball coach at South Plains College in Levelland from 2003 to 2004. He also served a stint as an assistant men's basketball coach at St. Edward's from 2002 to 2003. Bonewitz was a decorated collegiate student athlete at Texas Tech University. He garnered All-Southwest Conference Freshman Team honors in 95-96 and earned honorable mention All Big 12 honors 2 years later. As a point guard, Bonewitz led the Red Raiders to a 30-2 Ledger, Southwest Conference title, and an NCAA Sweet 16 appearance in 95-96. He graduated as the all-time assist leader for Texas Tech. While being coached by his father on the scholastic level, Bonewitz led San Antonio's East Central High School to the 1995 Texas State Championship with a perfect 35-0 record. He was also named Mr. Texas Basketball that season and was later inducted into the Texas Sports Hall of Fame.
Hey Hoopheads, I wanted to take a minute to shout out our partners and friends at Dr. Dish Basketball. Their Dr. Dish shooting machines are undoubtedly the most advanced and user-friendly machines on the market. Learn more at drdishbasketball.com and follow their incredible content at Dr. Dish B-Ball on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Mention the Hoopheads podcast and save an extra $300 on the Dr. Dish Rebel, All-Star, and CT models. Visit drdishbasketball.com for details. That's a great deal, Hoopheads. Get your Dr. Dish shooting machine today.
Hi, this is Joe Crispin, head men's basketball coach at Rowan University, and you're listening to the Hoopheads podcast.
Prepare like the pros with the all-new Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Fast Draw has been the #1 play diagramming software for coaches for years. You'll quickly see why Fast Model Sports has the most compelling and intuitive basketball software out there. For a limited time, Fast Model is offering Hoopheads listeners 15% off Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Just use the code HHP15 at checkout to grab your discount, and you'll be on your way to more efficient game prep and improved communication with your team. Fast Model also has new coaching content every week on its blog, plus play and drill diagrams on its Playbank. Check out the links in the show notes for more. Fast Model Sports is the best in basketball.
You want to take some notes as you listen to this episode with Stan Bonewitz, men's basketball head coach at Concordia University, Texas.
Hello and welcome to the Hoopheads podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here without my co-host Jason Sunkel tonight, but I am pleased to be joined by Stan Bonewitz, the head men's basketball coach at Concordia University, Texas. Stan, welcome to the Hoopheads pod.
Mike, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to having this conversation with you.
Absolutely. We are looking forward to diving in and getting to know more about you and learning more about your journey to the point where you've gotten in your college basketball coaching career. Let's start, though, by going back in time to when you were a kid. Tell us a little bit about some of your first experiences with the game of basketball.
Well, I grew up, I guess, just in the environment. My dad was a high school coach and coached for over 30 years. He coached multiple sports, baseball. He started out at a private school in San Antonio where he went to high school. He coached basketball, baseball, football there, and then transitioned from there to the public school arena and coached at a 5A high school, which is the biggest classification at the time in Texas. Coached there for 20 plus years. So, my experiences were, the experience of a lot of coaches' sons. I was, at practices from, the time it made sense for me to be there. I was riding on the bus. I was sitting on the bench. And so I was getting an inside look and perspective on just kind of what the game was about, and had a lot of different influences during that time. And it was great because my father took over a program that wasn't a very strong program when he took over. It had been kind of toward the bottom in the city, actually. And he was there a couple of years, and he implemented a system of play, a pressing style that kind of revolutionized the game in the city for about a 10 or 12 year stretch. And, it was something that was different. It was something that the city hadn't seen before. And so to be able to be a part of that and see what that did for the school, for the city, the excitement it brought was pretty cool. So I always tell people, man, that like I had a inherent advantage over a lot of people because I had access to a gym and to a team from such a young age, kind of year round, so it kind of definitely helped shape and kind of, without me even realizing it, put me on this path.
How old were you when you realized kind of how lucky you were? Because I think a lot of times you're a kid and it is what it is, right? That's just the situation that you grew up in. Was there a time when you started to realize like, hey, not a lot of other guys have this opportunity like I've had?
Yeah, I think it took me probably till I was, maybe in college or maybe in post-college. It's probably just something, honestly, in the last maybe 10 years or so that I've kind of wrapped my brain around. Because, as you get older, and I've been fortunate to be the recipient of some accolades for my playing career. And when you take time to really reminisce and you think about it, it kind of helps put perspective on the fact that, and coaching, because when you coach, you see a lot of guys who you feel like work really hard, and you realize that you're not special in that way as a player. Even though when you're a player, you think you're working harder than everybody, but you realize that you realize as you get older, and you can have some perspective that it wasn't so much that I worked harder, I just had more opportunity. And again, I don't think, like you said, when you're in it, you don't know you're in it because you're just going. You're waking up and you're going to school, and it's just the routine. You're going to your dad's practice afterward. You're shooting with a guy. You're playing the clock with him afterwards. And then next thing you know, you're playing on the team. Next thing you know, you're having success. And it just kind of starts running together. And it's not, and again, like a lot of people, you think success is a byproduct of your heart, of you, right? Of the hard work I've done and what I've put in. And then once your brain can develop and mature and kind of have some perspective, be able to see that, it was some of that, but it was also just, heck, I was learning lessons about the game when nobody else, at a much earlier age than a lot of people. So honestly, it's probably been the last 5 to 8 years that I've been able to mature and reminisce and realize, I was a hard worker, but again, I was really fortunate.
Have you had the opportunity, or did you have the opportunity to talk to your dad about where his style of play came from, where the inspiration was? Was he watching something? Did he see something? Was it just coming out of his own mind? Where did he come up with the idea? How did he say, hey, we're going to play this style that just hasn't been played in this area ever?
Yeah, it was completely out of his brain. Like, my dad is one of the most, he's the opposite of me. Like, he was extremely successful, extremely confident in what he wanted to do, and he wasn't asking anybody else's opinion. I'm like constantly searching for ideas, and I'm paralysis by analysis sometimes. And for him, he was at a school that was usually had smaller players, smaller athletes. And in San Antonio, they were competing against bigger, larger bodies. And they kind of struggled when they would get in some of those opponents who were just physically superior. And so he started in 1984, I believe. He started putting a group together. He called them the Wild Bunch. And he would put these 5 guys in, the 5 hardest playing guys he had. He'd put them in for like 2 minutes, and they would just press and run crazy, whatever. And the crowd would get so excited they couldn't wait for the Wild Bunch to get in. It was like the thing. And so that spring, he just decided, you know what, we're going to do this for the entire game. Like, heck, it seems to give us a joke, it seems to fit what the makeup of athlete we're going to have and the type of player we're going to have. And maybe it levels off the playing field. And from 1985 to the year we won it in 95, I think he may have missed the playoffs one time, had 3 state tournament appearances. And really, from the years of 86 to like 89, the city of San Antonio, like he almost got more news coverage than some of the collegiate teams that were in the city, because it was just so different. They were averaging 108 points a game in a high school game. And it wasn't the Loyola Marymount, because that was kind of the time when Loyola was kind of, Paul Westhead was kind of making his mark with the up tempo. It was a different system. It was based on defensive pressure, and there wasn't a lot of script to the offensive side of things. And so it was a very simple offensive plan, but it wasn't as traditional of guys running lanes and all the stuff that they did with the Marymount. But so when he did that, again, you just saw the student. I mean, we would have literally, there would be games. I remember this is stuff you remember, from when you were a kid. Like, I remember being so excited to get done with school and get over to the high school, because they'd be playing a game, and like the JV game would start at 5:30, the varsity game at 7:30. Well, at 5:15, the lines wrapped around the building to get into the JV game so they could be there for the varsity game. And it was just something infectious and something about it that just, there was news coverage. There was every week, everywhere we'd go on the road, it would be, the gym would be packed in. It was just a phenomenon that hadn't been seen. And so, again, not only was I fortunate to be a coach's son, I was fortunate to be the son of a coach who was, relatively successful and was kind of an innovator. And, his brain of how he looked at the game 100% influenced how I played, and to this day influences how I coach.
What do you remember about how your dad handled the notoriety and the attention of all those people being at the games? And obviously, different era. We're not talking about the internet age and social media and all those things, but at that time, I'm sure there was plenty of local news coverage and newspaper coverage, and he was getting asked questions. What do you remember? And again, obviously as a kid, you're not looking at it from the same perspective as you might if you were able to look back on it retrospectively now, but just what do you remember about how your dad handled that notoriety?
Man, it was interesting that you asked it, because he never changed. He's not a very outgoing. He's probably more of an introvert. And so it was just part of what his job was. He never, it clearly was important to him, and it clearly was a big deal, but it didn't, it never, he was always very willing, obviously, he was humbled or grateful to just have people caring. And so he was that one that the prices were open in the media. It was an open book, man. And he never lost perspective, which I think also helps, it helped influence me too, to just, stay grounded with whatever's going on. He was much better, I will say, at handling losses than I am. Than a lot of coaches I know are. He just compartmentalized it really well, because his mood, he set an expectation for success through intensity in practice and how he approached things. But it was never after a game, like, he was really good about the disappointment of losing being, because the expectation was so high, being greater than the maybe tongue lashing or something after a game. I don't remember him ever really, after losses or after wins, really changing his attitude. I do remember us feeling a certain burden or a certain expectation to carry on, and a disappointment we had in ourselves. But that wasn't influenced by necessarily his words of frustration. He was really good about, after losses, not making it about him. You know what I mean? Like, not making it to where we let him. You never felt like you were playing for him. You really felt like you were playing with each other for the legacy of what the program was. All you were trying to do was carry on what the previous guys had done. And he was just kind of the orchestrator, but it was never like, oh man, y'all, I did all this work. And he's always been and that's not like fraudulent, like there's always been a real thing with him. And so I think that also indirectly, I don't know if he meant to. I think it's just his personality. I don't think he had a grand plan with it. I just think that's just how he thought and operated. And I think that kind of helped motivate us to have us excited and other players excited to want to carry on that legacy.
That ability, I think, to be even keeled and not get too high and too low. There's some people who have that ability, and then there's others that don't. And to your point, I think you have to coach to your personality, and it sounds like he was able to do that and to be able to motivate and to be able to just sort of pass on, like, hey, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it, here's what's happened in the past, and you guys, and I'm sure especially you growing up and being as close to it as you were and seeing it firsthand, and just I'm sure from the time you could be in that gym, you wanted to be a part of that team. You wanted to suit up and play for your dad. And as you look back on those years, what was the best part about playing for your dad? What did you love about playing for him?
I think again, you don't realize it till you're finished and you've start playing and operating in different systems. The freedom, the encouragement of expansion of your game. Like, he was really good about always getting us to develop our skill set and to be more than just a position, but be a basketball player. And he just encouraged creativity, and he just encouraged growth. And I think the fact that he got that out of us, and the fact that was such a big thing for him. I think when you go other places and you see that's not how it is everywhere, it's kind of shocking, because when we were playing for him, it was so much about again, expanding your game, being creative, like I figuring out ways to do things differently, and you learn to shoot with both hands and put you're going through what would be normal warm-up drills, add something to it that had a little flavor, a little bit of that. He was just really, just encouraged all of us to kind of express ourselves as players and feel comfortable doing that without the fear of if you screw up something doing it that way, you're coming out. It's like, no, like if it's the right idea, the right intention, then we can live with it. And I think that's something that has influenced me as a coach, is the idea of trying to have a vision for our players that maybe is outside of what has been given to them in the past. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. I think what's interesting about what you said there is, and I can certainly relate to this, when you think about yourself, I'm sure as a coach, and we're going to dive into this a little bit more, but as a player, right, you can only experience the programs and the coaches that you've actually played for. Mm-hmm. And so you played for your dad, and you don't know what's going on every place else. And you can imagine that maybe it's different, or maybe there are some parts that are the same or whatever. But the reality is you don't really know. And let's face it, as a high school player, you're probably not even processing or thinking about it in any way, shape, or form of, hey, I wonder what rival school X is doing during practice. You're just not thinking about it in that way. But your greater point, when you go out and you start looking at college programs, and we'll talk a little bit about your recruitment here in a minute, but you start looking at, okay, well, what does this coach do? And how does this coach approach it? What does this program look like? And then when you yourself become a coach, now you're seeing, man, there's a million different ways that we can skin a cat. And you just think about how fortunate you were to be able to grow up and be able to play for your dad and play in the system that you did. And just, as you said, all the advantages that you have that you probably took for granted in the moment, But now looking back retrospectively, you can see again how lucky you were. So let me flip the question around, and I'm not going to use the word what's the worst part of playing for your dad, but how about what was the most challenging part? Was there a part of it that made it tough that he was your dad and not just your basketball coach?
Yeah, there was a couple. Like my dad, while being like how he was before and after games during practice, like my dad was pretty relentless. Like he was tough. Like he's a big burly guy, and he's a very serious guy, and he wants you doing things a certain way. And as his son, that expectation again was, I don't know if it was greater, but I definitely felt it. And so, and having, you're 15 or 16, you're just not, or I wasn't, some people may be, you're not like developed cognitively enough to separate those worlds, And so just for 2 hours, you're getting harped on by your dad. And it's hard to realize, man, I'm not at home. This is I have to flip that switch. And I probably wasn't always, I know I wasn't good at understanding that or processing that. So that was tough. I think, again, as a freshman, I moved up halfway through my freshman year, me and another freshman teammate. And, the immediate, first of all, it's so important to you as a basketball player. It's what you do, it's who you are, it's what kind of identifies you. And so, or you identify yourself as. And so there's already this internal pressure to be successful. And you're moving up to a group and of seniors who were good, but not great. And we're moving up there, and there's already this, the feeling of like, well, we know why this kid's moving up. And so you're fighting the coach's son narrative for a couple of years. And it was tough. I mean, relatively speaking, to people who have struggles. But it was for my freshman and sophomore year. It was a challenge to navigate those feelings of the pressure of playing in the game, not playing well, and hearing the chatter in class or in school the next day about why you're up there and coach's son and all this stuff. And then the other thing that's interesting is you start to. It's great in a way because you find out at a young age. Again, another thing you don't realize that you're finding out, but you find out who your friends are. You find out like who people are that are really, who care about you, connected to you. Because because as soon as your friend, the quote unquote friend, is not playing, well, it makes it a little bit of a weird situation, because of the relationship with my dad. And so all of a sudden there's a little different maybe feeling that person has toward me. Or you start seeing parents, players' parents who start treating you different whenever you're having success that maybe their son isn't. And you don't understand why, but then you start to realize why. And so I think that's another great thing I learned is you can start to kind of read through some people. When you're raised by a coach, you see the true side of a lot of people, of a lot of parents. You see the real side of of everything's great. Oh, we love the coach, and then son's not playing. And I remember sitting in the locker room one night. My dad was just getting an earful from one mom, and she was just going in on him. And I remember sitting out there with the guy, and we were kind of friends, and it was an awkward space we were sitting in. But the player, felt terrible because he realized that his mom was ridiculous because the player wasn't doing it. And I knew it, but so you see it at that age, and you just realize that parents are parents, and that's just the nature of coaching and kind of what comes with it. So I just think going through all that, and it was it took a couple of years, I think, for me to feel comfortable that for me to feel like I could play and block that other stuff out of my mind with all the chatter and all that stuff. So
did you talk to your dad about it in the moment, or have you talked to him about it just in terms of how he handled that situation from his perspective?
We've talked as I've gotten into coaching, and again, he always just, his big thing is don't ever hold the parent against the kid. I don't hold that against the kid or against the player. Like, it's not the player's fault. It's not the player's, every parent loves their kid and every parent expresses that differently. And at the end of the day, if the player's trying and doing what he's supposed to be doing and it's good for the team, then you can't hold that other factor against them. You got to just coach through it and realize a lot of times those kids didn't want to hear that any more than I did or my dad did. Like you just realize that, and so that's his big thing. He's like, hey, if you got somebody upset, obviously, there's boundaries that have to be created, which I learned again. I saw it at a young age how you don't mix those two, and then if that does come to be an issue, make sure it doesn't bias your treatment of that player in a good or bad way. Because sometimes it can bias you maybe in a good way or in a way that's good for the player but bad for the team, because all of a sudden maybe you do feel, or you could feel, some internal pressure to change some things based on this stuff. And so just blocking that out and understand how to navigate through that stuff was something I got from that.
Yeah, that's not easy to do. I think that's a challenge for any coach to be able to sort of keep yourself neutral in those situations where parents driving you crazy. And man, it's hard to sometimes separate that. But so often, I think you'll agree with this, so often when the parent may have an idea of what they think is going on, but I think more often than not, the player deep down, I think, knows and understands what the truth is and what the coach is trying to do. Not every single time, but I think in a lot of cases there is a separation between, the kid kind of really knows if you injected them with truth serum and you really sat them down, they'd come to the realization that, hey, this kid's better than me, or whatever it might be. And the parent is the unrealistic one. 100%.
And unfortunately at the college level, I haven't had to deal with this much like my dad had to deal with it at the high school level. But there have been some of those meetings and I've always found it's best to have full transparency with the player. And if it ever gets to that point and you got to have a sit down, have the player in, and I mean, 9 out of 10 times the truth will come out and things get resolved because, there's some part of the story that usually hasn't been told. and so,
right.
But that's been, I've been very fortunate. I think too, it really helps as a coach if, as a player, you appreciate when your coach is being honest with their effort and being honest with their follow through of expectations for the team. And I think and that's across the board, all players, treated, whether they say equal, but not, or fair, but not equal, not fair, however they say it. I think there is truth to that. And I think that helps avoid some problems too, is that the players know as a coach that you're working for the best interest of the team and the best interest of them. And I think that allows some of those things to work themselves out.
Have you seen over the course of your college coaching career, have you seen a change in the amount of parent involvement in players' careers? Because obviously when you started, I think we probably want to talk a little bit about your experience as a player and just what you did to get better and how the system was clearly a lot different than it is today. And you probably grew up in a similar way to me, where you were working on your game by yourself and you were playing pickup games and you were doing those things as opposed to working with a trainer and playing AAU and doing what kids do today. But the way the system's set up today, parents are much more invested in their kids' careers from a younger age, both in terms of the time that they put into those basketball careers of their kids, but also the money that they put in. Have you seen any change in the amount of parent involvement that you see as a college coach?
I've seen it more from a recruiting standpoint. Yes. Okay. I've seen parents be more engaged, be more aware in some say in some instances of kind of how the process works of what the levels are like, having a little more knowledge of those scenarios. And, yes, I do think you've seen more communication that comes from parents over maybe non-basketball themes through the recruitment process of, whether there's paperwork that needs to be completed or, orientations that need to be signed up for or applied, whatever it may be. I see that probably more the administrative side of getting things done with guys when they're in the process of coming here. I've seen that really, on an uptake recently. But I definitely, I think as we all know, the amount of playing, the amount of games and all that is just, I remember, whenever I was playing or first started coaching, the tournaments and just kind of the whole organization of the recruitment in summer was just completely different than what it is now. And in some ways it's better. In some ways opportunities are better, and chances to play and get exposures is clearly better than what it's been. But in some ways it's also made it to where parents' expectations have gotten to where they're a little bit hard maybe to sometimes meet some of those expectations. But also, you want to give, it's tough with some of the social media stuff and the kids posting, if they visit, getting offers and
right.
And the big commitment page at all levels, but at the same time, it's their experience and you want them to have a good experience. And if that's part of what their experience is, even though it may be outside the comfort zone of, myself or the coach, it's like, man, this is a special moment for them. Let's make it special. And so adapting to that is something that, we're trying to get better at. I'm trying to get better at as things evolve.
All right, let's go backwards to you as a player and think about the way that you grew up in the game and how you went about getting better. Just tell me a little bit about your experiences as a high school, college player, how you developed your game, what you did to continue to improve and give yourself an opportunity after you finish playing in high school. You obviously go on and have a great career at Texas Tech. So just talk a little bit about how you got better as a player. What was your process?
It was, my dad had a saying, it's like, if you're going to play, it's got to be an obsession, not a hobby. And he kept that on the back of shirts. And that was kind of the mantra that he built the program on. And so it started as young as, probably 6th, 7th grade with the Pistol Pete homework basketball videos that I'm sure you had. Those were things that were done. And so, you started, I was just in the gym. But it wasn't until I became probably a freshman in high school that I started to really commit myself to the year-round process of, 6 days a week. I gave myself 1 day off a week, but I was going to be in a gym, getting some type of work in. And, I became, the goal became, hey, be the first one to the gym, the last one to leave. And so I was going to make sure, if nothing else, that would be kind of my edge, I guess, was the fact that I was just going to put time in and I was going to make sure I felt like I was outworking everybody, whoever I was in competition with. And so it was, whether it was me in the gym, my dad would have a thing where we did last ones in and I'd hit a shot and I literally would shoot the lights out because he would, if I hit a shot, he'd turn 2 off. And then if I missed, he'd turn 1 on. And we had this sole switch. So I was literally by the end of it shooting pitch black. And if I missed, we'd start back over. And so, it's doing that kind of stuff. It was, had the strength shoes and was in the street running with a parachute on and just, I did what I did. I wanted to make sure because I wasn't physically that gifted. I think I tested my vertical one time. I think it was like 21 inches or something.
Hey, you and me, Stan, we're right there.
Hey, it was unbelievable. That I was the I was the ultimate landlubber, and so I wasn't going to out physical anybody. I wasn't going to outrun anybody and that stuff. So I had to have something. And my something was I was going to have even if it was not real, it was real to me. It was an inner confidence that I had put the time in to where I deserved to be on the floor with and against anybody. And that carried on through college. And I just tried to stick with it because I felt like if I didn't, then my opportunities were going to be lessened. And I didn't, I didn't have well, it's good or bad, but when I first started playing, my ultimate goal was, just to be a varsity player by my junior year. And then it's like, okay, hey, my dad played at St. Mary's in San Antonio, a Division II program, was in their Hall of Fame. Hey, if I could be recruited by someplace like St. Mary's and have a chance to play college basketball somewhere, it would be phenomenal. And so, it was never about working to play at this or this level. As those opportunities came, it was great, but that was the goal. Was just, man, I wanted it to. I never felt like I was good enough to not work, and so that was kind of my thing. I think if you ask guys that I played with, I think they would echo that I was at the time, I guess, gym rat or whatever you want to call it, and was just somebody that stayed in there. And and also I had some innate ability that came with being in the gym of just understanding how to play and some IQ things that with working pretty hard gave me those opportunities, I think.
How'd you balance your time between working on your game by yourself versus finding pickup games to play in?
I was very much about getting my personal work in. I was going to get that in. I was going to supersede a pickup if it had to. Now, ideally, but what we would do in high school in the summers is in the morning, we'd get up there at this gym at maybe 9 o'clock and work 9 to noon, eat lunch, and then all the older guys. This is when I was playing in 9th grade, 10th grade. We were first kind of at East Central, the gym, they'd have open gyms in the summer were huge. These guys from all over the cities. The college guys would come back, pro guys would come in, and they'd get there about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. So me and 2 or 3 other guys that were freshmen, so we'd get up there early, and we'd spend the morning working, shooting, doing whatever. And then they'd show up and we'd play 1 to 3:30, 1 to 4. And then as we got older and started having, driver's license, all that stuff, then we would go, we'd go home and eat dinner. Then we would go 2 or 3 nights a week to another gym in the city. Because back then, high schools would have the open gym. So you would just find, okay, they're playing at Alamo Heights, they're playing at John Jay, they're playing at whatever. And so that's where we'd go that evening. So you would just kind of shift around. Your afternoons would be spent at East Central, your evenings would be spent somewhere else. And then weekends, we'd go. There were a couple of military bases in San Antonio that were always good spots to go on weekends. And we'd go there and play. And so I was going to 100% play pickup, but I was so obsessive about getting in my individual work that I was never going to sacrifice that and miss that and just play. I always felt a little bit naked or empty if I didn't get my skill work in for that day and just play pickup. I'd almost feel, like I maybe cheated today,
Yep.
And so there was definitely, I would say I was definitely more I leaned more toward making sure I got the individual stuff in, and then would especially as I got older and got to college, that was something that I would kind of carry on of making sure that, then I implemented weights in college. I had weights in high school. We weren't really lifting much. So in college, I implemented a weight piece, then with my skill work, and then, would try to get a pickup in following that.
The first training camp, Elite Skill Development and Performance Combine, will be held on the campus of Western Reserve Academy, just outside of Cleveland, Ohio, powered by Unleash Potential and the Hoopheads podcast. The camp is designed for boys rising to grades 6 through 9 and will take place June 29th through July 1st, 2023. An emphasis on improving individual skills in the context of a team environment will be the hallmark of the training camp. Mike Klinzing from Head Start Basketball and the Hoopheads podcast and Joe's Decision from Unleashed Potential will serve as the camp directors of this inaugural training camp. Campers can expect 3 days of hard work, intense skill instruction, and learning how to be a great teammate on and off the court at the training camp. Players will participate in 10 elite skill development sessions led by some of the best coaches from across the country. Visit headstartbasketball.com to get registered. Were you putting together your workouts? Were you consulting with your dad? Who, just again, obviously today, kid wants to put together a workout. You just go on, you search, you find some drills, or you can go work with a trainer. But back in the era when you're playing, you're kind of on your own. So how'd you put together or figure out what you want to work on during those individual workouts that you do?
Some were initially my dad would have some ideas for me that I follow. I had an older cousin who coached and played at an NAIA McMurray University. Now it's at Division III in Abilene, and he kind of took me under his wing, and he'd put me through some stuff, some college level stuff, and then as I was getting recruited, I was lucky. I still remember at the University of Tennessee was kind of recruiting me. They sent me letters, and and there's a difference between letters and phone calls. I don't know if they were sort of recruiting me, but they did send me. Kevin O'Neill, I think, was the coach at the time, and he had a workout plan that he sent out, and just a sample of what they would do, and it was a Tennessee workout. And I mean, to this day, I could probably recall what a majority of that was, and I started doing that my junior summer, I think, is when I got that. Yeah, and it was about an hour-long workout that consisted of layups, mid-range jumpers, threes, stuff off the bounce, stuff off the catch, and it was good. And it was one that I just always felt exhausted after doing. And so, I would, I think now it's you're right. Like it's so nice now that guys can have so many resources to go and find this stuff. And, if you're in the gym a lot, you also, it's like anything, you kind of start creating your own.
For sure.
You kind of start coming up with your own ideas and your own things you felt like you needed to improve on. And you would, I was really big. I used to line up in my driveway. I would line these, like I'd get 4 trash cans and a cone in the middle. And I would, like in a diamond shape of those trash cans, and that cone would be in the middle. And I would attack that cone like it was a defender, then make a quick move to that next trash can and turn right back around and attack the cone and do that for like 25, 30 seconds. Just to work on trying to gain my first step. And something I do with our guys now. I do it. It's interesting. Some of that stuff that I kind of created as a player, I use now because I felt like it was pretty beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. When does coaching get on your radar? At what point do you start thinking about being a coach? Was that something that was always in the back of your mind because of the influence of your dad, or was it more like, hey, I'm a player and I'm not really seeing the coaching piece of it? Did it come to you gradually? Just how would you describe your arrival on the fact that, hey, I want to get into coaching?
I think it started kind of popping in my brain my senior year of college. I wanted to play as long as I could. And when I got finished at Tech, I had a chance to go with the Rockets and play it was the Rocky Mountain Review out in Utah. I saw there that jump to that next level was going to be obviously really difficult. And I kind of was at a crossroad of, hey, do I go play? At the time, there was no G League. There was no developmental league and that stuff. And I don't know if I could have played in it, but that wasn't an option. So it's like, okay, do I go play over in Australia or go somewhere? And that didn't sound as tempting to me at the time as maybe it should have, just because of the life experience you get out of doing that. But at that point, I started thinking, I know I got to stay in the game. I just don't know how. So I spent a couple of years finishing up school in Lubbock and Tech, and during that time, had a chance to, be kind of away from the game a little bit and realized how much I miss being a part of it. And so it just kind of drew me back into it. And I ran some camps during that time, and it's interesting. During that time, I got to really, really study. My dad always had the Pete Newell videos, and I got to really, really study that stuff and got on the phone with him a couple of times and his son, and was really studying footwork and all that. And so I was getting my fix of of that, and then had a chance to do radio when Bob Knight got hired at Texas Tech, and getting a chance to be at his practices a couple of days a week was really kind of excited me, and it was just something different and something new, and it was really, from a basketball perspective, it was just a great experience, and so seeing that kind of got me excited and kind of got me where I was kind of revved back up and ready. I think part of it too, when I got done playing, I had put so much of my life into it. I think I was a little bit tired, honestly. That's the only probably negative of not taking. I miss. I always tell people, man, being really successful, I think it can be really lonely because you don't take vacations. You don't go on trips. Like in college, I never made it to a spring break. I never made it to a family coach trip or any of that stuff, because I didn't want to miss those days. So yep. I think it's great, but also I think at some point when you're done, you feel like you've run a marathon and you need to take a little time to get your body back. And I think that kind of was where I was when all that wrapped up for me. It was like, man, that was a whirlwind. That was all in. I was 100% committed, and probably need to rejuice or refuel up my drive for that. And so that's a couple of years, I think, helped me do that and helped me get excited to start the next journey.
What about coaching did you love right from the very beginning?
The competition. I think, that's what I realized I missed. Even doing, I did radio that year with Texas Tech. It was fun, and I got to work with an all-time legend, a guy named Jack Dale, who had done it for 49 years, and got to travel and be around the team and learn from Coach Knight in practice. But it's different when you have zero impact or influence on the game, and I was so used to having an impact on it. So the competition was initially what was great about it. And as I've gotten older, I think it's all the other pieces of it. The relationships you build in the profession with other coaches is terrific. It's one of the things that kind of keeps you going. And then obviously the relationship with the players. And as you get older, you think you learn to appreciate that more, and you learn to enjoy those moments more with the team, and not be. You can kind of separate yourself a little more and not put so much of yourself into it. I think you learn that, but yeah, no, I think just being back into building something was something I'd missed, even though I didn't really know what I was building. It was just fun to be going through the process of acting like you're trying to build something.
What influences from your dad do you still feel like are a part of your coaching today? What have you taken from him and all the time that you spent with him and watching him and playing for him, talking with him, that has become an integral part of who you are as a coach?
Oh, I think style of play. We press and we try to play fast and try to play with tempo and that. So I think that was part of it. And the flexibility of, within the coaching construct or whatever, to think outside the box and to try to see players. I think I got this from him, but the ability, and I've recognized it again when I went back and watched his team play, when teams play once I was done playing, the ability to see what players could do beyond what maybe they're seeing themselves be able to do. And I know a lot of coaches probably do that, but I think the system he created allowed players with certain skill sets to maybe flourish more than they did or would have in other systems. And so seeing that, and now trying to recruit to that, and watching guys play and seeing some things that you think you can maybe work with and allow some guys to maybe have success doing some things they didn't realize they could do based on a vision that you have for them, knowing how they fit in the system you're trying to play.
That makes a lot of sense. I think when you talk about the influence that somebody that you spent as much time with as you spent with your dad, I mean, you can't help but think that there's probably a million things that rubbed off on you that you just absorbed through osmosis of just being around him for such a long period of time. When you think about your stints as an assistant at the college level, what are one or two things that you picked up during your time as an assistant that when you got the job at Concordia that you feel have made you a better head coach because of what you learned as an assistant?
I think obviously the value of recruiting and, how important that can be, seeing, programs that had good players and what that meant and what difference that made. I think also just learning how involved you have to be with players' day-to-day activities in order to keep things moving. I think that's one of the things I struggled with probably early on as an assistant was I just didn't understand, that these guys are different than I was. And so in some ways good too, because it's not like I was always the most focused academic student and I had my priorities in mind because I didn't. But you think all guys will have that they just maybe don't understand or don't know how to have. And so being involved with, helping with making sure assignments are getting turned in, just, the academic side of things and realizing, and also just realizing how to organize a practice and run a practice and how to create expectations for the style and the way you want to play and how you conduct yourself daily in a practice influences that. And so I think being around that and being able to observe that for a couple of years helped me at least have a head start on, okay, like how involved you got to be in again, a lot of administrative processes, whether it's the recruiting side of things, whether it's the eligibility side, whatever it may be, like you have to you got to make sure that if you need something done, it gets done, and not assuming that because a player says something is good, it's good, and I think all that was kind of eye-opening to me when I first started as an assistant. And again, I think I'd be a lot better now, honestly, as an assistant, because I understand so much more of all those pieces that come together to form that pie that a head coach is trying to make and trying to put together. And just how important it is to help, take some of those off the plate of the head coach.
There's no doubt that being able to understand the needs of your head coach, I think, is probably one of the best qualities of an assistant. Whenever I talk to somebody who is an assistant, has been an assistant, and is working their way up the coaching ladder, I think that's one of the things that they consistently say is, look, I try to add the most value that I possibly can by trying to anticipate the need of what my head coach is. And I think if you can learn that as an assistant, that helps you then when you become a head coach, because conversely, now you kind of know what you're looking for in a good assistant and how they can help you and make your program better. How does the opportunity at Concordia get on your radar? What does that process look like?
I'd played. Ironically enough, I'd played at Concordia as a high school game. We played Temple High School, met halfway in between the two spots, and Temple was town right outside of Waco. At the time, they were number 1 or 2 in the state. It was my junior year, and we were number maybe 6 or 7. Well, we met at Concordia and actually played him, and we beat him on a last-second shot, which was a crazy game and a great win. But so I knew of the school, and I knew, my cousin played at McMurray, which was Division III, and he coached at McMurray and had a ton of success there as an assistant. And I knew players that had played at Concordia. And so when the job popped open during my second year as an assistant, my first when I was at South Plains, the opportunity was there, and I knew that it was a job, or I felt like it was a job that was potentially gettable. It was closer to San Antonio, which is where I was from. And it was in a great city. And so I was in town, and I just happened to I had put together my stuff and walked in to the gym, and the AD happened to be there that day. And I just gave her my info and introduced myself, and we talked for a minute or two and said they'd be going through the process of getting candidates in line. And then it was just, through the interviewing process, I worked really hard at trying to create a book to give them with all my philosophies. And who knows what those philosophies were worth? You think it's not like, I never went back and looked at it. I'm probably not following any of those philosophies at this point in my life, but this all that stuff out and had some good references, and was able to, give Linda Lowry's the lady who hired me, and I, can't thank her enough, because I was probably 20, I don't know, I was 26 at the time, but I was really young. And, I was in my head, I was qualified, but I don't really know if I was qualified for the job. I probably wasn't. And, it was a job that paid very, very low. And it was, it had tradition, but it didn't have a ton of recent success, I guess. And so they took a chance. And my first couple of years, we really struggled, but I felt like we were, on a good path, and slowly but surely over time, kind of built it up. But it was a definite break that I got, and I know that having been a successful player in the state, and having some of the history really helped me, because I'm sure there was, from a coaching standpoint, more qualified candidates. But I think the thing that I did have going for me is I felt like I was very, very low maintenance, and I wasn't concerned about salary. I was 26. I didn't have, family or anything. So I was able to I think, come with very little strings. And again, I was, the other thing too, when you take a job like that, like I was the basketball coach, but I was a game day administrator. So I was working soccer games and working baseball and volleyball and teaching a freshman life and leadership class, and, doing multiple things that I think, honestly, there may have been more qualified coaches who just didn't want to mess with some of that stuff. They didn't want to spend their Saturday afternoons out at a soccer field from, noon to 7, while being in the process of trying to do all that stuff. So I learned to love it, though. Honestly, I learned to love being a part of all those different events, because, it's a chance to learn and a chance to get connected, and, really open my eyes to a different level and to a different idea of what a university could be. And it's been great since I've been here.
What's something that over the course of your career you feel like you weren't very good at when you first started as a head coach that now you feel like you've gotten a handle on and you've really improved upon?
I really hope it's like me and Coach Cook talk about, saying it. We talk about, take your job serious, but not yourself. And I think that's something I hope I've gotten better at is understanding that that this is really important, but to me, that it's not as important to everybody else as what you think it is. And I think that I've gotten better at using that perspective to help me remove myself from outcomes. Like I don't know. I feel like I don't really care about my record. I mean, I do, but I don't. I think I've done this for a long enough period of time to where I know that does not define the job you're doing as a coach. That it's so much is about, are you improving? Are you, are the guys getting better. They've figured it out. Are we learning from previous experience, and are we not focusing on winning? It's like trying to make a shot, man. You can't focus on trying to make a shot, because if you're trying to make it, you're aiming, you're never going to make. You got to just you got to follow the steps and put the work in, and then if it's open, shoot it and hope it goes in. And I think it's the same thing with coaching. I think you follow the steps, you work, you do your prep, you don't cheat the system, you don't cheat what you're doing, and then you hope when the ball's tipped, you're going to adjust and you're going to coach, but you also, hope you can make more shots than the opponent or keep them from scoring more. And it's not a reflection. I think so much becomes the idea of like, you as a coach get so frustrated with what's going on because there can be an insecurity about the performance being a reflection directly on you. And I think when that happens is when you can start losing the team, because it makes you act out of character. So I think I've kind of adopted the idea. I want to coach teams, guys who I want to lose with, as weird as that may sound, like, because it's easy to be around people when you win, right? Like everybody's had for the most part. It's just when you lose, who are the people you want to surround yourself with? And so trying to recruit to that and still recruit talent, but recruit talented guys who are with things. I think that helps you stay in the process when you're all on the same page about that. And so I think we've gotten better about that. I still get upset when we get beat, and I'm still, have a hard time with it, but I've been able to, I guess, recover from it better than I could 10 or 12 years ago. 10 or 12 years ago, I'd want to just go lay in the fetal position and turn the lights off and be in a dark place. And now it's like, hey, we did what we could do. We got to get these guys better. And at the end of the day, it doesn't make the other coach that you're playing a better coach than you. And sometimes they are, but it's also like there's some factors that are out of your control. I think just removing the ego from it and helping and having your guys do it. I think if you do that, your team can do that. And they can really not be dictated. You're going to celebrate the wins. But like last year, we went through a skid where we lost 9 straight. But it was great because we learned, and we started valuing moving our feet. We started valuing, guarding the ball, blocking it. Little things. We were 8-4 to start the season last year. Everybody was talking about how good we were. But we weren't, and I knew we weren't. We weren't doing things I knew we would. And we lost 9 games, and 3 or 4 of them were literally one possession games or free throw line to win games, to seal games, missing free throws that they come down his shot. And we were prepared. Ultimately, you can't make the free throw for the guys. And we stayed the course to where we got into that. We got in our conference tournament, and we played the number 1 seed, Mary Hardin Baylor. It was really good. And right now I think they're ranked number 2 in the country preseason. But, we played those guys, and we're tied with 2 minutes ago in the conference tournament, miss a block out, and we lose the game by 5. But, we got better, and I saw that. And I didn't let the fact that we were losing these games steer us off course from what I knew we were doing, And so I think just being able to keep myself locked in on the day-to-day steps of it is something that I do better now, and not more so than whenever I first started this thing. Because when I first started, it was, if you don't win, you're not good.
Right.
And I think I've matured. Because I think when you think that way, it also impacts how you recruit, because then you're going to recruit whatever hey, I'm going to just go get the best guy.
Right.
I don't care what may come with it, what you may have to deal with. I don't care what principles I'm going against. Hey, if this guy can help me win, I got to win, because I got to be able to tell people when I go out to eat or when I'm walking across campus, my record was this and this, because I don't want to have to explain why it wasn't. So you want to just cover that, but you're not. But you're really not. You're not able. That's only temporary, I think. And so I think I've become a little more in touch with that, which has made coaching the last several years. Honestly, it hasn't been the most successful from a win-loss standpoint, but it's been it's been fun. I mean, each year I feel like by the end of the season, we're playing our best basketball. I feel like we peak at the right times. And I don't know if we will this year, but I feel like we have. And I feel like the relationships we have with our guys have been probably better than ever based on staying true to who we're trying to be.
And that's the process, right? I mean, that's the thing where you start looking at it and saying, we're going about it. We're doing it the right way. We're doing it the right way from the moment we start recruiting a kid. We're bringing in good people that we think are going to be a good fit in our program. And obviously you want them to be talented and they're going to be talented players. But ultimately that character piece of who you want to be around day in and day out, that's a huge part of it. And then you start going to, look, we're going to prepare our team and we're going to do the things that we need to do in practice to put ourselves in the best position to win. And sometimes you're going to win games and sometimes you're not. And look, I get it from talking to you and from talking to any coach that everybody loves to win games and everybody's out here. And ultimately at some point you get judged to some degree on your one-loss record, but there's really more to it. And I think the more you as a coach can focus in on that process piece of it of, hey, we're doing things the right way. We're doing things the right way in terms of the kids we're bringing into the program, in terms of the positions that we're putting them in out on the floor, in terms of helping them to not just become better basketball players, but also become great students and better people. And all those things, I think, all add up to, it sounds like from what you're saying that I get the sense that there's a level of satisfaction that you have at this point in your career that you might not have ever been able to get to when you were younger.
No, 100%. I think again, so much of what, I was so concerned or so consumed with winning because of what I thought it meant for me, for my reputation, for how others viewed me as a coach. And I really don't care at this point, honestly. Like, I don't mind telling people, how we did. And I mean, it's never a fun conversation, but like at the end of the day, it's like, and this is what it is. And people who know, and the people who don't, it doesn't matter. And so I just think removing that from yourself as a coach, and again, still being competitive, you still want to win, and you're never just gonna roll off. You still put all the time and you work harder in some ways, but it doesn't. Again, it makes it strictly about the process of improvement for your guys. And I know everybody says process has become kind of a niche thing to say, but I was audio booking. This was like 4 or 5 years ago, a book by Ryan Holiday that said Ego is the Enemy. And it was just what the name of it is. And
love that book.
It just kind of shaped my thinking and kind of allowed me to realize, all this concern, all this pressure, that's just my ego that's getting in the way of all this. And I got to remove that, and I got to not care. I got to truly do this for the right reason and live with the results. It doesn't make it always easier, but again, I just think it helps with perspective and helps you be able to navigate the profession a little bit easier.
When do you think that as a head coach, you got to that realization that we've been talking about and sort of were able to pin down what your philosophy, for lack of a better way of saying it, both in terms of the kind of culture you wanted to build and in terms of what you wanted to do out on the floor, X's and O's wise? I know there's going to be adjustments and things that you do differently year to year, depending on your personnel, but how long did it take you into your stint before you felt like, hey, I've got an identity. Inside, I know who I am. I know what kind of coach I am, and I know what kind of product that I want to put out on the floor and what kind of coach I want to be for the kids that are part of my program. How long did that take?
I think the idea of like stylistically how we wanted to play in that, I knew right away. I knew kind of what we wanted to do. I knew the type of game I wanted to play, I knew the style I wanted to play. But as far as becoming like comfortable with approach and how I was gonna coach the guys and again perspective and all that stuff. I think that's honestly been the last 4 or 5 years that I've been able to really kind of take on that mantra of, again, I want to recruit the best players we can, but we also want to recruit guys who, when we're coming back on that bus and we got an 8-hour trip and we lost that game, like, who do I want to be on that bus with? And who do I want to be at that, that restaurant with when we're eating after a tough loss? And who do I want to, who do you want to be around? And I think that has taken me a while to grasp. And I think that's only been the last couple of years probably that I've really become more and more comfortable with that idea of I'm willing to sacrifice some of this from a guy to get some of this, and even if that means, we may have, because I also know ultimately if you're not in alignment, you're not going to win.
Right.
If you don't have guys who you really feel that way about, you're not going to win. It's going to bite you at some point. At some point, that disconnect between your philosophy as a coach and the players not matching can cover for a little while, but at the wrong time, in the wrong moment, that disconnect is going to rear its head and it's going to hurt because it's going to come at a time whenever you need it the most. And I'd rather at the time I need it the most know what I got, and know what I'm in that moment with and be comfortable with that and have confidence that in that moment, I got the right guys with me to get through this moment together, as opposed to just, masking it and kind of just coexist. I don't want to coexist with players. You know what I mean? Like I want to build with them and I want to grow with them. And I don't think you can do that in any relationship if it's not, if you can't be your authentic self, and so I'd rather be my authentic self and have players for their own, because I think that creates an environment of non-fraudulence, of trust, of realness. That is how you go win tough games on the road. You don't win tough games with, an idea of what a team is or a culture is. No, it's got to be real, and you got to have real conversations. You got to be able to have, real talks, and you can only do that with people who you believe in and who you have good relationships with.
Looking to grow your coaching? United Basketball Plus has over 3,000 plays and 45 deep dive courses with some of the best minds in the game, including Tyler Costin, Paul Kelleher, Tobin Anderson, Dave Love, and more. You can also view their United Basketball clinics and receive 50% off in-person clinics. United Basketball Plus has partnered with Jordan and Joe's Decision for their skill development curriculum. United Basketball Plus is a one-stop shop to help you grow as a coach, leader, and culture builder. Follow the link in the show notes and use the code CLINIC to receive an annual membership for just $50. What does that look like on the recruiting trail when you're going out and you're trying to evaluate what players you want to bring into your program? Are there intangible things that you're looking for from the player? Are there questions that you're asking of them, their family, their high school coach or AAU coach? Just what's your process like when you're recruiting a player to figure out whether or not they're going to be a good fit for your culture?
I think part of it, it starts with the evaluation of watching them play. Clearly the talent piece, but also like just how are they carrying themselves throughout a game? And it's, how are they responding after success, after failure? How are they responding coaching? And then when you're having conversations with them, do they have some, I really like it when a player has some hubris, has some humility, some self-awareness. I think that's when you can tell a player is self-aware through conversations and when they're able to communicate about the success or failures they've had in a way that is real. I think that's really, really important. And I think we, through conversations with the coaches, we're just there's little cues that we pick up on, as far as how a player acts when they get on campus, how they, communicate with you, with parents, and when we're at lunch, are you able to talk to them? Are you able to have a conversation with them? Are you able to get below the surface level of just the answers the answers they think they're supposed to give? And can we create that connection there where there can be some real talk and some joke and some seriousness, but something that kind of creates an avenue that she's like, okay, I can see myself spending time around this guy. They're not just checking off boxes whenever we are talking. They're not just getting through it, but there's some actual genuineness with it. We don't have, I wouldn't say we have specific questions or we have anything specific that we put them through, as much as we're watching for the traits we know we value. And it's good when, I've had great assistants, but the guy I have now I think is terrific. And he is, he's all about this same stuff. And so when he's out watching, when he tells me, hey, the coach, this guy ain't gonna make it, he wouldn't be, he's super talented. But man, I've tried to call him. He was supposed to, I was supposed to talk to him at 11 o'clock and I called, he didn't answer. And then this and this. It's like, we start marking guys off.
Right.
We just know, okay, yeah, he's not meeting this in this box, or, it's just certain things that you kind of pick up on. That it helps when it really, really helps, obviously, the sit and big news, but when your staff is in alignment, it makes things much easier to get through.
Watching a kid in AAU versus watching them play with their high school team, are there different things that you're looking for depending on the environment? Do you prefer one environment over the other when it comes to evaluation? How do you approach that piece of it?
I think with the AAU piece, I like watching that because a lot of times, depending on who it is and where it is, the level of competition, when you see them, you're going to probably see, a pretty high level that they're going to be, or a good level they're going to be going against. With high school, it can be hit or miss. The high school I really like, though, because being in Texas my whole life, I got a pretty good idea of, how high school programs are run. And so being able to see players play in certain systems under certain coaches and know how they respond to those coaches is really, really good. And it's really a positive for me. And it's something that we lean on a lot, is knowing, whether it's in Houston, Dallas, wherever, knowing the program they're coming from, the coach you're playing for, and being able to have conversation with that coach, knowing kind of what their expectation is really helpful. It's really, really something that has been good for us for all this time.
Once you get a kid on campus, one of the challenges that when we talk to Division III coaches here on the pod, clearly the rules and how much you guys can have contact with your players when you're not in season can be challenging to build those relationships where you don't have as much unfettered access as they do at the Division I level, which I guess I would kind of argue almost is too much. But thinking about from the Division III level, just what do you do? What are some things, some ways that you try to go about building relationships to your guys?
Well, and for us recently, me and my assistant got our strength and conditioning certification. And so we're able to work. We have to work with the entire athletic department, but we're able to work with our guys with strength and conditioning in the fall, which helps because that allows us to initially
that's awesome
build relationships and start when they first get to campus, communicating with them and talking to them and that. So that helps. We have mandatory study halls the guys come to where he gives a chance to see them 2 or 3 times a week. And then we'll do individual meetings at the beginning of the year just to kind of meet with guys and talk to them about kind of their transition and kind of how that's going as they're here. And really, we even in the summer, we'll have a lot of summer camps and we'll hire some of our, players and deposited recruits to come and work that. And just trying to get them on campus and just be around them as much as we can before October 15th, just so we're not strangers to them. I think doing all that together has helped. It's really, because before we were certified, we'd have the study halls and we would have maybe a community service activity we would do, but we weren't able to be with them in any kind of environment that we're going to be with them in once we actually start practice. And so that's helped, being able to see in that second week of school, we're up in the weight room, whatever.
Yeah, and that's one thing, right, for your returning players, where you've already got a built-in relationship with them. But I would think with freshmen, with incoming guys, and here you have to have such limited contact with them, that's got to be a challenge. I'm sure that by the time you get to October 15th with those guys, before you were able to get in with the strength and conditioning piece of it, that, man, you're like ready to go with those freshmen who you brought in, and you want to start getting to know them and build that relationship, and just to not be able to have as much time with them as you like. I'm guessing that was pretty tough.
Yes, no, 100%. Like you recruit them and you tell them how much you want them here, and you almost see them more when you recruit them than when you get on campus,
Yeah, right.
And so they get there and it's like, wait a second, Coach, I thought we were going to be in the gym. I thought we were going to be doing this and this. Like, well, we got a couple months and then we'll see you. So yes, it definitely, just having that allows, even though it is different once you get on the court, it's nice just to see them for 45 minutes, 5 days a week out, in a somewhat of a sports arena, and so that was, part of it was, hey, we need to get the certification so that we can, get stronger and in shape. So this when we start a season, but also just so we can be around them. And you can, start, it's all volunteer stuff, but you can see when those guys show up then, like who is, some of those characteristics are showing pretty early.
Absolutely.
What you're going to get from them. So it also helps from a team dynamic and team shaping mindset of being able to start to kind of piece that together.
What's your philosophy as far as practice design and trying to make sure that you're creating the most competitive, intense practices that you can? What's your routine look like when you're putting together a practice plan? You can either take it for preseason, kind of before you start playing games, or if you want to take it into the season where you're preparing for a particular opponent. How do you go about sitting down and putting together a practice plan? When do you do it? How do you do it? What's the process?
Man, we, me and my assistant it can be a tedious one, obviously. It's one of my least enjoyable parts of the day, because I know it's never going to be a simple process. But me and my assistant will sit down and kind of have a list of things we know we want to accomplish and get through, before certain days, certain times, and we'll sit down and kind of want to mix in. I've always been in the past, I was a whole part guy, and this is the first year we're doing kind of whole part whole. And so, we've done more of that this year of trying to show the big picture to guys, and then, from there, break it down into drills. And so, I think it's just, we try to teach it, maybe rep it and then scrimmage it, and really try to put point systems on as much as we can. But also we've started implementing certain non-negotiables we want in whatever we're doing, whether it's, our practice used to be a breakdown of about 75, 80% defense, 20% offense. And now I think it's probably more 50-50, kind of what we're doing. But, we've gotten to the point now where so much of what we value, we'll just get towels out. And if guys, aren't doing it, then they know they got towel slides, whatever that may be. So, whether it's getting, right now our big thing is blow-bys if we're not guarding the ball, or if we miss a block out, or if we don't move on ball flight. Like there's 2 or 3 things that as we're seeing it, and if it doesn't happen, instead of getting mad and getting frustrated, we just have them go get a towel and go push it. And so, we try to early on, we want to instill, for us with pressing, a big part of our early practices is mindset. So we'll sacrifice maybe a little bit technical to make sure we're really, really emphasizing uh, mindset and toughness and competition and really trying to instill how we want to play, how we want to get after people, how we want to guard, the effort, the speed. Big thing with us is urgency. So whatever we're doing, we want to be urgent, whether we're going through some skill work, whether we're going through defensive work or whatever it may be. It's we're trying to move fast, move quick, and not waste much time. And so I think if you can, you would see a practice of urgency. I think you'd understand kind of the mindset of what we're trying to do and how we're trying to play.
How do you recognize those things that you're looking for in practice? Do you go in with an emphasis on, okay, hey, we're struggling with box out. So do you put a focus like that on practice in a particular day where, hey, we're looking for this thing? And then when you do notice those things, because we all know what you can praise is going to get repeated. And so as you're going through, how do you make sure that the players know what's important to you on a given day? I mean, obviously over the course of playing for you, they start to understand what are the things that are most important to you. But day to day, how do you make sure that the things that you want to emphasize are the things that the players are feeling?
I think for us this year, what we've started doing is, I spent a lot of time over the summer clipping and putting together off synergy some things that we value on both sides of the ball. And so we've started kind of bringing guys in and having a 15 minutes film session with them over whatever it may be, whether it's, our 2-2-1 press and the first level conversion, and understanding that first level conversions are really, really important in trying to be a good pressure defensive team. And so we'll show them 5 minutes of clips of first level conversion. And then they know throughout that practice as we're working, in our press defense that this is what we're going to design drills. We're going to design games that are going to compete and value guys who are get to that conversion quickly. And there's going to be winners and losers in that competition. And then we're going to take it from there to more of a 4-on-4, 5-on-5, where again, all those times when we're doing that, there's a high emphasis on it. And if you're not doing it, again, there's usually a towel involved with it. And if you are doing it, then it's going to use your reward some type of point. It's going to give you a chance to win whatever it is. So again, it may be that next day, it may be, hey, we're going to really emphasize our offensive spacing and movement plan and making sure whenever we have advantages, we're doing this and this. And we're going to show you some video on it, and then we're going to expect you to do it. And same type of thing, we're going to set up competitive drills for you to do it, where you're being rewarded for it and you're playing for it. And then we're going to do it in a 5-on-5 scrimmage. So we've really tried to find those things daily that we feel like are really, really important points of emphasis that maybe we've struggled at either last year or we're seeing in practice. And then we'll try to film it, show it, go out there, emphasize it, and then put some type of value system toward it once we start scrimmaging.
When you're watching film, and obviously you as a coach, you're putting a lot more time on the film and looking through whether it's opponents or looking at your own stuff. But when you're sharing with players, how do you balance out how much you show them of, hey, here's what we're doing really well, and those positive clips versus showing them, hey, here's where we fell short of what the expectation is? How do you balance those when you're sharing film with players?
I think it kind of depends on time of the season. I think early on, it's probably trying to maybe be a little more balanced with it because you're trying to encourage success and show them what success looks like. I think as the season goes on, I fall into probably more of a pattern of where we aren't doing it, because I feel like at that point we should understand it. And if we're not, we need to show them where it's not happening, and then try to fix it.
What do you think when you look over the totality of your time at Concordia? What do you think has been the one or two things that you can point to that you're most proud of that you think have had the most impact on your success as a program and as a head coach?
I think the couple of things. I think one is the satisfaction the guys feel when they're finished with the level of work that we put in, and the idea of not being cheated from what they signed up for. So I think most guys leave the program feeling pretty satisfied that they got their money's worth, that there was time put in by them, by coaches, and their opportunity to succeed was done with a pretty high level of intention. So I think that's one thing. I think the other thing is just the alumni, the relationship base that we've been able to form with players over the years, and the way that has kind of grown, and you see it now generationally passed down, and you see guys from different eras, coming together and connecting and all having that same bond over having gone through some of the same stuff they've gone through during their time. So I think those areas of knowing that the guys have had a good experience, if you felt like, and they've been able to share that with people, and they are able to come back and share it with guys who have done it before them.
What's the best part of being a Division III head coach? What do you love about the Division III level?
Oh, I love the fact that it's the collegiate level. You can recruit to it, and you're able to recruit guys who have, it feels like able to keep pretty good perspective on things. It's stayed. I feel like it has stayed for the most part pretty true to what the game is supposed to be, and so I also love the fact that, like, you see a lot of guys who just have so much more grit than I had when I was in school. They seeing guys that are you just appreciate guys that are working jobs and taking classes and coming to practice, and just, man, some of these guys are really tough. The stuff they do to play, people have no idea. Like, it's really hard. It's really hard, man. These guys are paying rent every month at their apartments that are off campus, and they're leaving practice on the 31st of October. In spring, they got to get home and make sure they get their rent check in. And, they're doing that while maybe some guys are working in the on-campus dining hall and some guys are working off campus. And it's impressive, man. And all the time they're taking 15 hours. And it's like, man, I was not near the student athlete. Didn't have near the toughness, man. These guys, it's impressive. It really, I always tell them they may have it harder now than guys are at higher levels, but man, they're going to have it much easier when they're done, because they're prepared. They're having to already balance so much in their life that majority of college athletes don't have to balance. So I've really, again, as I've gotten older, I think I've really grown to respect that and just admire the fact that guys are able to do that. It's really, really an impressive thing.
Yeah, that's unique to the Division III level. I think when you start talking about just how different it is, and I mentioned it, a second ago, and I know you know better than anybody, just the way that Division I is set up now and the amount of access that the coaching staffs have to players today, and the workouts in the summertime and all this. And it just sort of becomes, again, that's your full-time job. And at the Division III level, you can actually have a player who can have a job and just be involved in other things on campus. And there's certainly the opportunity to have a more well-rounded, I think, college experience than you can have maybe at some of the higher levels, which again is something that not everybody thinks about when they're trying to make a decision about where they're going to go to school. We're coming up, Stan, here close to an hour and a half. I want to wrap up by asking you one final two-part question. First part is, when you look ahead over the next year or two, what's the biggest challenge that you see in front of you? And then the second part is, when you think about what you get to do every day, what brings you the most joy about being the head coach at Concordia? So your biggest challenge and then your biggest joy.
Biggest challenge would be just I think like always continuing to just have that sustained level of energy and enthusiasm that every day as you go to work and as you get in and with your team, just the challenge of having those guys, having your team continue to have that level of energy and excitement on a daily basis is tough. For 6 months to strap up and to do it every day is challenging, but I think that's why it's important for me personally. I try to stay in shape and try to keep my body right and all that stuff, because I think that definitely contributes to that. And I think also just keeping the guys, moving forward and trying to continue to live with that process mindset and continuing to try to get the guys to be 100% committed to that. I think biggest joy is just, my job just doesn't feel like a job. It's hard at times, and it is stressful and all that, but I'm going to spend majority of my day tomorrow thinking about basketball, watching basketball, and being in the gym practicing basketball. So it's pretty cool that's what I've been able to do, for going on 17, 18, however many years now. And being able to just, I think as I get older, appreciate the relationships with our players more. I really do feel like as the years have gone on, I've been able to appreciate those more and more than I did probably when I was younger. So just continuing to form those and develop those is something I'm looking forward to continuing to do this year.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I think those relationships, there's nothing better than 5, 10, 15 years after a kid leaves you, that you're getting those calls and you're still in contact with them and you still have those relationships. You love winning games, but ultimately that impact and those relationships, that's really what it's all about. And it's been fun. That's what this podcast has kind of become, is just, again, getting an opportunity to know coaches and people from all over the country and all different facets of the game, and being able to have conversations just made it so much fun. Before we wrap up, go ahead.
No, I'm saying absolutely, yeah.
So before we get out, I want to give you a chance to share how people can reach out to you, whether you want to share social media, email, website, whatever you feel comfortable with, and then I'll jump back in and wrap things up.
Yeah, myself, if anybody has questions, it's 512-796-9278. Email is my first name, Stan, STAN, Bonewitz, BONEWITZ @concordia.edu, and you can follow me on @Stan Bonewitz on Twitter. But yeah, if anybody ever has questions or anything, man, please feel free. I'm always, reaching out and trying to learn from other people. So if I can ever be of any assistance, be more than happy to. And I appreciate you having me on and taking time to ask these questions and get to know more about me as a person and coach and professional. Is really, thoughtful of you. And I appreciate you thinking enough of me or this opportunity to have me on for this period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. We cannot thank you enough for taking the time out of your schedule. I'm glad that Andre Cook connected us, and really thankful that there are coaches like you that are out there that are willing to share their story and willing to share the game and jump on here with us and have a conversation. So again, thank you for your time tonight. And to everyone out there, thanks for listening, and we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks. Your first impression is everything when applying for a new coaching job. A professional coaching portfolio is the tool that highlights your coaching achievements and philosophies, and most of all, helps separate you and your abilities from the other applicants. The Coaching Portfolio Guide is an instructional, membership-based website that helps you develop a personalized portfolio. Each section of the Portfolio Guide provides detailed instructions on how to organize your portfolio in a professional manner. The guide also provides sample documents for each section of your portfolio that you can copy, modify, and add to your personal portfolio. As a Hoopheads Pod listener, you can get your Coaching Portfolio Guide for just $25. Visit coachingportfolioguide.com/hoopheads to learn more.
Thanks for listening to the Hoop Heads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.